So, okay, we got to pick it.
You still have some time. All right. Oh, we got it. What are you gonna do here? Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay, folks, thanks for waiting. I know we've got a little bit of a late start tonight. Appreciate your patience. At this time, I'd like to call the June 8th, 2023 Common Council Finance and Community Development Committee meeting to order. It is 5:08 p.m. First order of business, I'd like to take a motion to approve the minutes of the May 11th, 2023 Finance and Community Development Committee meeting. Motion by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Todd. Any changes, deletions, or alterations? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Sorry, I'll also note for the record that all members of the committee are in attendance. Item 2.1, discussion of the 2023 year-to-date report. Again, standard report provided to council. If there's any questions, please let us know. 2.2, discussion of the City of Plattsburgh 5-year projection. This projection was provided to council. I know that there were some questions on debt numbers, but again, 5-year projection, and any questions, comments, please. Yeah.
So I sent an email out and I never got a response to it. One of the things I asked is, what is the amount of new debt that we've accumulated? I'm not asking for the debt service, which is outlined in the document, but what is the amount of new debt that we've accumulated? I never received an answer on that. I sent that question out a couple of weeks ago. Richard, do you have those numbers?
New debt firms for what?
From since 2021.
Well, we put a band together last November, which was also a roll forward of the band from last March of 11,857,000. So that would be new debt since, what figure are you asking about?
Since 2021.
That's it. And then also there's 3.7 million and 1 million for sewer bans that have been issued from the REIT programs that New York State is running. But we don't have any debt service requirements on that until 2024, when they are going to decide what to do with that debt, as far as, you know, rolling it forward as a ban, or if they're going to put it into a serial bond issue for the city of Plattsburgh.
And how much in so far in 2023, Margaret Street project included, do we plan for this year?
We've got on the list about another 7 million.
7 million. And up to 7 million, how much of that is going to be the bond anticipation note from Margaret? Because I know that we were going to kick that down for a couple of years.
Probably about 1.7. And that's just water. That's just the water and the general piece of Margaret Street.
How much? I'm sorry. How much was that again? You said 5.
About 5.7.
5.7 is going to be the ban for until what did we say? 2024 or 2025?
No, a ban would just be for another year.
1 year.
Yeah. So of the 7 million that we're going to looking to roll forward, or excuse me, add on to the 11,857,000, about 5.7 million, that's Market Street. And so we're looking right now about 18.5 million by the end of the year, but we're not finished yet.
Right.
We'll have to pay $135,000 principal and about $560 in interest in November when we roll forward. But we're going to have to add to that project cost, like I said, to the extent of 7 million. But I know there's other capital projects that we're entertaining right now that have more money to add to that list.
So you did 18.5 million by the end of this year, is that what you said?
so far.
So far. Is that typical for us? So,
This is a big bond issue that we're coming up with. I think the biggest one I've ever seen since I've been here is about 13.8 million. So this is a big one, but once again, you're talking about a $7 million project to replace water distribution lines on the base. You're looking at, 5.7 million per Market Street. You're looking at a lot of big projects. So you're looking at $1 million that we've got in there for the water fund improvements for the water wells. We have a whole list of it. So you got a new fire truck, you get a new ambulance. This is big. And it's not over yet, like I said, for the rest of the year, we're going to see what we're going to add to it. I know one right now they're going to add to it for City Hall improvements. It's going to, increase by another 900,000. But we'll take 135 off and we'll pay the principal with the roll forward. And I've used a 4.25% interest rate
for the band,
for if we converted it into 20/30-year sewer bond. And that was what we used to develop the next 5 years of debt service on top of the debt service we have right now on the books. Those rates are improving right now. We're probably looking at about 4%. So it's down, 0.25%. And by the time we actually put this debt in place, it could be down under 4, looking in the 3s. The current estimates for, I think we saw a 15-year one today, was about 3.99. So rates are coming down slowly, but
slowly.
yeah, the treasury, if the Federal Reserve stays away from rate increases and say takes the summer off and just goes away and watches the markets, maybe we'll see it go down. But if they keep kicking the interest rates up, because they think they're doing something with inflation, it's going to cause those rates to go back up some more.
So, when there's a lot of fields handled differently in this document than in the past. I'm used to looking at this. So,
Yeah, that old spreadsheet. Now we looked at that carefully. I never looked at that very carefully because Colin Reed was doing most of that himself. I was just putting the debt service pieces in at the top. But unfortunately, what she used to do was take the entire budget of expenses, let's say, and apply a percentage increase to it. So that was inflating debt service numbers she shouldn't have been touched. And that tended to accumulate, a much bigger deficit at the end of the game. And also, we weren't looking at your personnel costs separate from your contract service costs and so forth, and your health service costs as well. They all increase at a different rate because we have contracts that were saying back then 1.5% for labor. And say health insurance is going up 3% a year. Contract services might have been 2% a year. So you couldn't just apply a factor against the total. Otherwise, you're distorting what you're looking at. Now, this new format is the format that I used to use when I started here in 2007. It's called the AIM report. And that required us to report this to the state and show 4-year history with a 5-year projection, plus the current year. Because it supported the AIM funding that they gave to the city as our per capita share of income assistance from the state. So I used to do that report, and right up until 2017, when Colin Reed said, no, I got a better idea, I'll do this worksheet. So we're actually going back to the reports I used to do, and you might be the last guy that saw the ones that I used to issue to the city. And like, this was our 5-year plan, and we always did have it, and we looked at it pretty carefully. So this is resurrecting that format, and it gives us, I think, a better view of here's personnel expenses, here's healthcare, here's debt service, and so forth.
Yeah, I would agree. It's much less convoluted, more straightforward
Yeah.
than the Colin Reed version.
Yeah. And it also
it's good, we needed to do a 5-year plan.
Sure. What this also has to, the state has to do is improve the water and the sewer, and then you have your levy information. And that was the format, like I said, I used from 2007 through 2017.
And we got this template, I understand, from the state controller's office. The Is that true?
Yeah.
So that speaks highly for that particular plan, and
And I've got the old ones if you want to see them. I think I sent you the last one I did there. 2017.
got them somewhere in my boxes and files, but,
I don't know if you were you a counselor at the time I was sending this out? I don't think you were.
no, I've been here since 2019.
Yeah, last one I did was 2017. So you've got nothing but the column read
That's right.
versions. Yeah,
So in the sheet mark general fund, under assumptions, I see 3%, 3%, 3%. So total revenue and other sources all the way over under the assumptions. What is that 3%? So it's under the revenue column, it says total revenue and other sources all the way over to the right, but it's marked in yellow, it says assumptions, 3%. What is that assumption?
I did the actual history and the budgeted column, and the mayor applied the percentage increases for revenues and
Just an assumed increase of 3%, 2% being the typical tax cap, plus whatever percentages that we've seen historically with non-property tax revenues.
Okay, so in the column,
For example, Counselor, I know sales tax, for example, has probably increased 6 or 7% annually.
so under revenue, real property taxes, under the approved 2023, we have 11,876,690, and then by the end of 2028, 13,112,826.
Correct.
Now that's a pretty significant jump.
Well, it's 2% every year, per the state mandated tax cap. This year, between 2022 and 2023, I think it was 2.04%. Considering that some of that levy is not applicable to the tax cap, so that's why you kind of get away with over 2% increase. But the projection between 2024 and 2023, the 2% increase, 2024 to 2025, 2% increase, so forth, so on down to 2028.
But when we look at 2019 compared to 2023, so that's 4 years, and then you look at another 4-year spread, it is increasingly, that's a bigger jump than between 2019 and 2023.
Yeah, but you'll also see in 2021, there's some potential deflation of real property taxes, unsure why. Maybe the assessments went down. I don't think that's the case. I don't know why the real property, sorry,
It isn't.
it isn't one.
The assessments never.
No, I know, but you'll see in 2021 versus 2023, a decrease in the real property taxes, which typically is not the case. Typically, the property tax continues to increase normally. I do not know why it decreased between 2019 and 2020 and 2020 and 2021.
Richard, can you shed any light on that?
I don't know if everybody remembers the end of 2020 and all the different budget versions we were going through and all the gyrations to.
Gyrations.
Really weird word, okay.
Gyrations. I was in doing 5 different budget projections, and I remember the talk was we have to reduce taxes for the city of Plattsburgh by 15%. And I think that there was hack and slash and let's cut, and the tax rate was reduced. The assessment did go up, but the tax rate was reduced significantly because of discussions with the then Mayor Colin Reed and the council. In those Saturday budget discussions we had in the room, I remember them. I don't know if the rest of you do.
I do.
You remember those?
I'm sure Matt L remembers.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it was a conscious decision to reduce taxes because there was a pressure from the ex-and mayor to say that the taxpayer should have a 15% tax reduction.
So I know, I asked for Mr. Shapitsky at some point to come before council. I saw the email.
Yeah,
that you sent out there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody can answer this question other than Mr. Shapitsky, but did every property get reassessed in the city this year?
No, and typically every property does not get reassessed in the city.
My property was reassessed at 20%. So what is the standard across the city? I mean, do you have any answer on that?
They're reassessing various neighborhoods based on comparable sales. Is the basic return we'll get from his office. There is a project for us to go forward and reassess every property, every business in the city of Plattsburgh. And I think his office is making progress in trying to get that done. But in the interim, they're looking at neighborhood by neighborhood and pressing comparable sales of other properties against properties that haven't been assessed in a while. And some properties have been assessed or reassessed a couple times in the last year.
Yes, some of them have. So the commercial properties, do you know if every commercial property was reassessed or?
I don't know that they've been touched much.
My understanding is that this year, yes, commercial properties were reassessed. It's been, in the conversations I had with commercial property owners, it's been 10, 12 years since they've been reassessed. Their reassessment is based primarily on their income and maybe not so much on comparable sales. But yes, significant amount of downtown properties, rental properties, multi-unit properties have been reassessed.
Did they get 10 to 20% like the rest of us?
I believe that they've been, there has been an uptick.
That's a fair question.
No, it is 100%, there has been an uptick. Unfortunately, we don't have July 1st is when we get the official roll for the next year. So we cannot, I don't have that data yet. We will get that data shortly, next month. But we will see probably an increased, total assessed value in the city of Plattsburgh.
So we're gonna get like a report from Mr. Sapinski about the commercial properties? And what will that entail?
I will ask him to, when we get the final tax roll, I'll ask him to segregate the property assessments for commercial versus the property assessments for residential, compared from last year to this year.
Yeah, I would hope that, since they hadn't been reassessed in about 10 years, they would, I've been reassessed 3 times in the last 5 years. I would hope that they got a substantial increase, because if they haven't been reassessed in 10 years, they're due for some pretty good hikes, I would think.
The tax exempt properties haven't been looked at for 30, 40 years. And that's overdue, because that tells us how much non-taxable property at the current rates, not rates 40 years ago, would apply against taxable properties in the city. And it's going to be alarming to see that that's going to represent 40 to 45% of the total taxable value being exempt,
If not more.
if not more.
Yeah. And we provide that number during the budget cycle in terms of how much how much the tax exempt assessed value holds against the total assessed value. But as Richard noted, that could have been some years since we had an assessment of that tax exempt property. I can ask Mr. Zapinski to add that to the list of details that he provides.
That would be nice.
Yeah, I think that number for the tax exempt has been 494 million for. But as long as I've been here,
Say that again,
494 million.
Yeah, it's been about that.
As I've been here.
I gotta look, 500 plus rings a bell, but I've got to look back in my charts to see where that number is from.
I know we pay as we go with OPEB. Is that reflected in here anywhere? No.
We can't book any expense or future liability for all that. The law won't allow it.
All right, so we can't put it here, but we pay as we go
It's in our financial statements. It shows you.
and, right,
Yeah, the city owes 175 million for an 85-year period out, but it doesn't represent real obligations that we have to pay, because we pay them every week.
for years, when I've looked at our 5-year plans, we've always indicated on our sheets of a rolling deficit, just as what we call the structural deficit, and I don't really see that here. In the 2024 numbers, when we look at surplus versus deficit, there is a deficit of 451,000, and then that structural deficit seems to go away, and this was something that we always knew. How do we account for that?
What do you think caused that?
I don't know, and that's.
We eliminated 4 departments.
No, I mean, last year when we did the 5-year plan, that structural deficit remains at a much larger and more significant amount. And I don't see it here. So is there a reason for that?
I think the previous worksheet that was used, like I said before, added. An automatic increase to everything and compounded it year over year over year. And the debt service number should have been taken right out of that completely, because they're a fixed number. The debt service doesn't increase with inflation. It's already fixed for 20 years out, 15 years out, whatever. The new debt service was put in there as an estimate, and the old debt service that was coming out was taken out. And like I said, if you're saying, okay, we're gonna have a 3% increase across the board on salaries, the old salaries used to only go up at 1.5%. That was, the standard increase for wages. So the old worksheet used to prepare for the worst of like, okay, we're compounding our expenses. And you're seeing at the end of the day, a huge deficit that really wasn't actually practical to project. To me, it was inflated. To me, it was like doom and gloom extending it. Now, these numbers are, I would say that they're conservative, but they're also pretty aggressive on the income side. I don't know if we're gonna go 3.5% a year on property taxes. We don't have to exceed the cap. Will assessments increase that much? It remains to be seen, but I mean, you can take these percentages and play with them as many times as you want to do whatever you want with them. But here you're gonna get a cleaner picture, because don't touch the debt service. Those are the numbers based on what's there, plus what I just gave you at 18.5 million in a year, 4.25% for 20 to 30 years. And the healthcare is another, line item that you can look at, and contract services as well. The contract services should probably have the highest increase in inflation, but then again, the wages are going to go up pretty dramatically this year. Or projecting out next year and the year after, because we have a raises for the police and fire department. And the first years are pretty high in those increases.
So this will be my last question for tonight, and I'm continuing to look at this to make sure I understand it, but on the levy and employment page of the document, tax rate per thousand of assessed value, so 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, see a 10 cents reduction per year. So I stand very firmly on the fact that we need to bring that down more than 10 cents per year. If we're going to be increasing 10 and 20% on the backs of the taxpayers, then we have to bring that down more than 10 cents.
We've already discussed that. That is the mayor and I have already discussed that. Tim Sofisti told me that we're going to get an approximately 10% bump in assessed value for commercial properties. So we talked about that, and I'd like to see a, corresponding tax decrease in this year's budget to match that. And maybe a real request if I'm not putting words in there, I thought that was a pretty good idea.
Yeah, and again, I'm not of the mindset to artificially deflate assessments. If a 2% increase, if a 2% increase in the tax bill, regardless of what assessed values are, I think that's a fair increase. That is also built into the New York State law, right? So this is projection based on what numbers we currently have now, not based on the number of the actual certified assessed values that we will get in July. Now, come July, when we plug that number in, we most likely will see that tax per thousand decrease, because the levy will be significantly higher than it is now.
Yeah, unfortunately, it falls on the backs of homeowners much more than commercial people. But anyway, my only comment on this, are you all done?
Yeah, sure, thank you.
This projection that I went over, it doesn't match my projection. I'm not going to debate this with anybody. It's a projection. I don't feel it's very accurate, but that's my opinion. I'm not for it. That's just my opinion, and I really don't think we need to go down that road of what my specific things are with this, I think the income was overrepresented, and I think the expenses were under reflected in that, but that's just my opinion, and this is all opinion, so there's no sense in debating it or anything, but I just wanted to tell you that it's my opinion. Not feeling it's all that accurate. Okay, thank you.
All right, 2.3 draft resolution authorizing the removal of the city's workers' compensation insurance coverage motion. Councilor Bob, second by Councilor Gibb, discussion.
Can we get an explanation of this?
Every other year, we do a workers' compensation coverage renewal. This renews for, I believe, the next 2 years. That's right, front loaded by a 7.2% increase. Average out over the 2 years of the contract, it should be a 3.5% per year increase, pretty standard. The workers' comp folks that we use pay us back a little bit when we do good work. We don't injure ourselves as employees. So just as they do every year, we typically get a check, few $1,000 here and there when we do good work. But this is pretty straightforward renewal. Any further discussion? All in favor of moving this to the regular meeting? Say aye. Any opposed? Carried. Item 2.4 draft resolution establishing capital project H5110.97 2023 Broad Street traffic study. Councilor Gibbs, Councilor Bach, discussion.
I have the same question for both this one and the next one.
Yep.
So what are we looking for in the traffic study? For speed,
Traffic
road-
count, speed, road concern with traffic. This is an item that was approved to move to the assignment of the award of the bid was approved in the infrastructure committee. This is creating the appropriate and associated capital project for that bid to be funded through CHIPS. This study and the next item is for Councilor Gibbs and for everybody else is to measure traffic count, understand the concern for traffic count with the potential of a road diet or road restructuring, particularly on Broad Street. And then also maybe some traffic mitigation measures on Oak, depending on the traffic count justification for traffic.
So would this be the entire expanse of Broad?
This would be between Beekman to the Catherine Streets intersections.
Any cameras involved?
Likely not right now. This is just a traffic count study. We're doing this now, even though our plan is to we're approving this now, even though our plan is to commence the study towards the beginning of the semester to capture a more realistic traffic count. But yeah, this is in preparation for that for return. And noted please that this first one, 44,000 approved for 44,000 is CHIPS funded, and it does include both the study and the potential redesign costs. Does not include construction costs.
I understand this, the plan is to replicate what was done on North Margaret Street a few years ago. And that transforms that.
Yeah.
So that you can easily ride bikes to the people, sure. Walk safely to the beach.
Yeah, without prematurely setting ourselves up, that is a potential, but we do need to get traffic count first before making that decision. Any further questions, comments, any further discussion? All signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. 2.5 draft resolution establishing capital project H5110.98 2023 Bailey Avenue Oak Street traffic study. Councilor Gibbs, second by Councilor Bob, discussion.
Now, where is this?
The intersection, or it's really not an intersection of Bailey, Oak, and Robinson Terrace.
Okay.
Yeah, we heard enough issues on Oak Street alone to justify this, to really see if, traffic mitigation, traffic concerns can be addressed along this corridor. This is to indicate how much traffic is in this neighborhood and how that traffic interacts with, other multimodal, transportation, mechanism, biking, walking. The
So-
kids are riding scooters these days.
Right, and since both of these areas, for 2.4 and 2.5, include schools.
Yeah.
Will this make a future project more eligible for, grant funding?
Like safe routes.
Yeah, something like
But
that.
yeah, potentially, I mean, we currently have a safe routes grant that, for the Oak Street School right now. To increase sidewalk size, bike lanes, and bike safety and bike safety infrastructure for safe routes to school for Oak Street. Most of us are aware that Oak Street is quasi problematic with speed, so we're doing everything that we can to mitigate those concerns. Whether it be safe routes, infrastructure changes or street changes, potentially stop signs if this study indicates there's a need for stop signs. And then also radar signs and other traffic control devices on Oak Street. For discussion,
What we have to do to get one of these built on South Coast
a study south, traffic study south First Street.
by Martin Street School.
I mean, it's just a matter of identifying the need, getting the project together. These projects are again funded through CHIP, so it's nothing for, I'm saying nothing. It's an easy lift to get the study done, and then based on the studies, then what do we do with that information, right? If that is something that the council wants, then I don't see an issue with doing that piece. It's, in terms of the resources that we have to spend towards studies like this, it's a low barrier to entry, and certainly information provided we can act upon.
Okay. I'd like to see one done on River Street as well. I mean, even with the implementation of that, it's really ridiculous. Anyway,
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3.1, CFA grant application discussion.
Yeah. Beth, could you pull Bob into the
You've
meeting?
been sitting so patiently.
it's not about.
Yeah.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Evening.
Hey, Bob, can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. Bob Murphy from Martin and Judas, who is the city's primary contact for our grant writing and grant administration contract with Martin and Judas. I've asked him to be here tonight to go into a little bit of detail on the CFA application the city intends to submit during this year's funding round. Just to give the council some background as to how we got to this point. In 2022, Bob held pretty extensive interviews with most of the city's department heads, discussing what their funding needs are, what projects they have coming up, what projects might be eligible for grant funding. We use that as one of the bases to determine which applications we're applying for in the 2022 round. A few months ago, I sent the resulting memo, along with the request to all department heads to update Bob and myself and the mayor as to the status of those projects that were discussed last year and any updates that they wanted to be built into this year's grant strategy memo for consideration by the council and the mayor as to pursuing grant funding. So we got a lot of good feedback from the department heads. Bob incorporated that feedback into the updated grant strategy memo that was in everybody's packets. And then we had a discussion earlier this week with a group of department heads to finalize a list of applications that we would like to pursue. And I asked Bob here today to go into a little bit of detail for the council as to what those applications involve and what that funding will ultimately go towards for we to be awarded those grants. So Bob, you want to go down the list?
Sure. No problem. Can you see my screen? So after our meetings over the last month, as Matt indicated, we arrived at 8 CFA applications to pursue. And those who may not know, that CFA stands for the Consolidated Funding Application. It's a pool of several programs that are all offered under one portal and deadline, which is in this case, July 28th. So I'll go through them real quick. The first 3 you see on the list here are all resubmissions from last year. As much as I'd like all the grants we write to be funded the first time, that is often not the case. So in that result, we have debriefs with the funding agencies to understand how we might improve the application for funding the next round. And we think we've got good solutions for each of these 3. The first being the Harborside Master Plan implementation, phase 1. So the plan was just finished up earlier this year and looking to move into implementation. This project would include pedestrian network improvements throughout the area, as well as a destination playground and some other amenities. Number 2 here is city beach amenities. Beach restoration and stormwater improvements were funded last year. However, the park amenities, including a pier, were not funded in last year's round. We think that by closing out an older parks grant, that it's going to improve scoring for both this application, which funded or scored very well. Nevertheless, we think that that one improvement of closing out that older grant will put it over the top. It'll also improve scoring for item 3, the City Hall historic preservation renovations, which is the stairs leading up into City Hall. We think again that closing out that older grant through parks will help scoring this time around. Then we have 5 new applications. As was mentioned earlier, a Safe Routes to School grant was funded through Climate Smart Communities program last year at Oak Street. Now we want to turn attention to Brinkerhoff and/or Court Street for their multi-use complete streets improvements. We think that program would be a good fit there as well. We've had good success with that, and we think that that could be an option this year, so we're going to pursue that. Then we have Sailors Beach Park planning. That site's been sitting unused for a while, and getting an understanding of where improvements need to be made for public safety and access would be a focus there. And that would be pursued through the OPRHP, Office of Parks, Rec and Historic Preservation, Parks Planning Program. So you see 3 here that would go to parks, state parks as a program, but they're all under different categories, so they wouldn't be competing against each other. Wanted to point that out as well. So that's just for the planning. Then a couple under John Ruff's sort of umbrella, one of which being the raw water transmission line replacement. That's a multi-million-dollar project, according to John, that needs to occur anyway. And so with this application, which would benefit the entire city system, we could maybe knock off $1 million of that. This project would fund up to $1 million through this program if successful. Then we have an inflow and infiltration study of entry flow of stormwater from the town of Plattsburgh into the city. The city collects from different areas of the town and has to treat that stormwater. So identifying areas where there's a lot of flow coming in from the town and measuring it would be the focus of that study through the engineering planning grant program from DEC. And lastly, we have building renovation funding. This would be study money to look at about a handful of properties in the downtown area to come up with concept plans and cost estimates for their redevelopment. This would then pave the way for larger implementation grants, in the 6 to 7 figure range in the next round. So those are the 8 that we had planned for this year, and I just wanted to kind of lay it out for you for any questions you might have.
I have some questions. Okay, I have some general questions, not on these specifically, is it okay if I ask?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm a part of the Climate Smart Task Force, Bob.
Mhm.
And, you worked with Jennifer Perry and the Clinton County Health Department to submit, an EPA grant. And I was wondering if you had heard anything, because the original grant submission, I think we were told we would hear something by April. Do you have any updates for us on that?
I have no updates for you on that, unfortunately.
Okay.
Haven't heard anything.
And I have a request from Rochelle Armstrong, the Lake Champlain Water Smart Landscaping grant application was denied, and she said that somebody asked for a review and didn't know what the status of that was.
So as far as I know, basically the Lake Champlain Basin Program kept the city and county's application for review in this upcoming round. It was not successful the first time, but they've kept it for this round, to my knowledge.
What does that mean? They kept it? They're going to resubmit? Is that what that means?
Yeah, basically, it won't need to be resubmitted, to my knowledge, but that's something that we would double check on for this round.
Okay. I don't see the Market Street project on this list of projects to look for funding. I keep getting information from other people outside of the city network about, for example, the Lake Champlain, Lake George grant opportunities. What is happening with this large project? Why isn't this on the list of projects to look for? I mean, I forwarded to Matt and Mayor a grant that was brought to my attention and the possibility for, I think it was up to $400,000 in funding. I mean, I know there's grants out there, but why isn't that on here?
Because construction has already begun and almost every grant program requires a grant to be in place before significant sums are expended. Since we're already about a third of the way through construction, applying for a grant now that would be awarded in December and for which the contract would likely not be in place until well after the completion of work. It's out of work with the process, so it's simply too late in the process for the Market Street project to apply for a grant to assist funding for it.
Or when we applied for the Restore New York grant, that application.
Yeah, that was an exception, and that was something that both Bob and I had to confirm explicitly with Empire State Development before we applied for the grant, because we knew that the work was likely to start before they would announce the awards. That is the exception, not the rule.
So there are going to be some other upcoming grant opportunities for the Climate Smart Task Force work that we're doing. In particular, Jennifer Perry's, she's my pipeline for information on our work to take food scraps out of the landfill. So the organics management work that I'm working on. What is the best way to move forward when she has a grant opportunity that the city could benefit from? What's the best way to move forward on something like that?
Send through Rochelle to my office, and then I can loop in Matt and Bob and Rochelle in that process.
Those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Discussion on CFA grant applications or general grant applications, grants available. All right, 3.2 draft resolution revising capital project H5110.85 2022 public service buildings motion. Councilor.
Oh, I was just gonna say before we move on, thank you, Bob.
Bob, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Everybody, good to see you. Bye-bye.
And sorry, just one last thing before we move on. Several of these applications are likely to require specific resolutions to be passed by the council endorsing the submission of the applications. I'm in coordination with Bob, and we will have any such resolutions to the council for consideration in July.
Are the grant applications strengthened by anything beyond resolutions? So for example, letters of support from counselors, or is a resolution on its own enough to be support, or should we do something further, Bob?
So resolutions are required by some of the programs, not all. Letters of support always help. Particularly though from user groups. I will say that, for instance, we have Harborside. If we had a runners group or a senior walking group or something like that who would use the trail network, a letter of support from them would be very helpful. All letters of support are helpful, but I think user groups are the most helpful.
Now, do you go out and solicit that kind of thing, or how?
We do, and for example, last year for our Safe Routes to Schools application, we saw a letter of support from Plattsburgh City School District. Bob, do you remember any specific ones from outside groups beyond that from last year? I think there might have been one from one of the recreational groups, the cycling groups for one of the trail applications.
Yeah, I want to say something for one of the city beach ones as well, but I can't remember offhand.
Yeah, so we do go out and see those letters from community groups.
Thank you.
Okay, Bob, thank you very much, man.
No problem. We'll see you guys soon. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, 3.2 draft resolution revising capital project H511. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, 3.2.
Yep.
So,
Yes.
Resolution.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Resolution. Well,
We've had it.
good point. Oh, it's just.
Okay, sorry about that. Sorry, the numbering is just a little bit off. I apologize.
Yeah.
Draft resolution revising capital project H5110-5 public service buildings. Motion by Councilor Gibbs, second by Councilor Kelly. Discussion.
So, what is the total increase? Is it the way that the document is laid out? Is the total band is $1,989,090, right?
It's going up $929,000.
That's what I wanted to know. It's
Right.
going up 900
Yeah.
change.
And that will add to that debt number I gave you before.
So it's above and beyond the debt number you already gave.
Instead of 18.5 million, or up to 19.4 million. Yeah. Once you adopt this appropriation resolution.
just a point of clarification on the construction costs that are listed in the capital project resolution. Those reflect the estimates that were included in the feasibility study for the two projects under consideration, the roof and the stairs. What the council is being asked to approve tonight as far as contracts is the final design, bid management, and project management for the stairs project. Once we get to the bid process and we receive bids from contractors, the council will be asked to approve those bids, and then those construction costs included in the capital project will have to be adjusted accordingly based on the bids received.
Why such a large jump?
There was a placeholder amount included for repairs to the city hall stairs. I'm not sure at what point that was added. Rich, do you know which provision that was?
I can recall it was $200,000 for the stairs.
Yeah.
That's the rough number.
So the feasibility study for the stairs and the basement indicated an estimated cost of 1.014 million, which is why we included it in this revision to the capital project. And there's also a slight increase in the estimated cost to replace city hall roof as well. As you can see from the last revision to this one, $798,857.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Roll call. Or, I'm sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. 3.3 draft resolution authorizing service agreement for final design and project management of city hall front staircase and basement repairs. Motion by Councilor Bob, second. Councilor Kelly, discussion. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. 4.1 discussion memo received from Matthew Rogers and LaBelle Associates. It's a project update of the smart code plan for zoning code changes. Fairly comprehensive update. I believe that there was a advisory committee meeting today. A stakeholder meeting. I apologize, stakeholder meeting, and then when is our next when's the public engagement, meeting,
The workshop,
correct?
we haven't set a specific date,
Okay.
that's probably be towards the latter half of July.
Okay,
And my anticipation right now.
Gotcha.
Ways to put a meeting going.
Okay.
Yeah, our next PAC meeting is June 27th,
June 27th,
right, but that's not a public meeting.
is that Monday, Tuesday?
It's Tuesday.
Is that? Okay. Any questions or discussion from the memo received?
The
Yes, sir.
stakeholders that you mentioned, can you give us their makeup? Please don't mention their names.
Yeah, it's actually groups of entities that are stakeholders throughout the city that we would have a stake in the change in the zone for one reason or another. So today we met with a housing representatives from the housing community. And the town of Plattsburgh to give us their feedback and perception of where they and feedback on where they would love to see zoning changes and where there are issues and topics that happen. Other groups would be transportation, climate task force, on climate issues, environmental things, the building department, developer groups, nonprofit and business groups. So it's a vast array of groups throughout the city that live and participate in business.
Are these groups aware of the city's draft comprehensive plan, particularly the zoning section?
That is an item, a topic of discussion to start off all of these stakeholder meetings. But it's not a required piece of information. The consultant is very aware of that. So it's right through it and that.
Have they been receptive to the proposals made in the comprehensive plan?
That's not a question that's necessarily coming up, because we're taking it as if the comprehensive plan is a completed exercise for the most part. That is not on the table for review publicly at this point. And we're trying to really take what has been completed with comprehensive plan and begin implementing it through analysis of our zoning and property department.
So is it safe to say then that most of the items in the zoning section of the draft comprehensive plan will end up in the zoning code?
That's the objective.
That's comforting. Thank you.
So Alicia, I just have a question, how will the climate smart task force be included as part of this work? Are they in the larger groups of these stakeholders, or
It
is
would
it?
be a part of the stakeholder group. So the consultant will likely reach out to representatives of the task force. Probably a week or so.
Okay.
So, and that's the consultant has contact information and the full list of stakeholders to be able to reach out and set up names. Things, most of the meetings are probably conducted within City Hall.
Okay.
For
Thank you.
Alicia, is this project active on the city's portal for my city of Plattsburgh?
It is not publicly active yet because we don't have an interactive component to engage the public, but it is for all councilors.
It's very vague though. I mean, the memo that we got as part of this update was very good. I clicked on that link and it doesn't.
There's not a lot
Yeah,
of
it's great.
engagement at this point in time. And right now, we're still in the initial phases of the zoning update. We're in phase 2, which really is the consultants deep dive into the analysis and stakeholder meetings. And then they'll bring their findings as a report and move that forward into a public workshop, which that's where more engagement is. Start making the energy.
Thank you.
Thank you. 5.1 draft resolution authorizing the mayor to attend year conference, the mayor's Nikon Fall Executive Committee retreat. Motion by Councilor Bob, second. Councilor Kelly, discussion. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Any public comment? Any new business come before this committee?
Yes, I wanted to follow up with you, Matt, regarding my question about Creighton Civic Center and demolition. And what is Reichenberg, it's Reichenberg, right?
No, it's
No.
Ritter Imperator, right?
Sorry.
Is the
The other one. As these concrete enforced steel, pillars are being exposed.
Mhm.
Do we have any answer on the question that I posed the last time? About
As
how
to
those-
the method of deconstruction. So,
Those have to go beyond, those have to go deeper into the ground than 2 feet.
well, we were able to locate a copy of the original plans for the crate, but they were 50 years old and very degraded. It wasn't possible to tell exactly from the drawings how deep into the ground they went. So we used a pretty good baseline of 36 inches below grade. At that point, the contractor would stop crushing anything he finds. He would fill in the cavity left over from the building foundations and then put topsoil on top of it, hydro seed, and
Right, you told us that last time, but my question is
Yeah.
specifically about the pillars.
for the pillars, they will also be crushed down to 36 inches below grade.
What if they go below 36 inches?
If we find that they go below 36 inches, that'll be a decision that we'll make in coordination with the demolition contractor if they feel that they should go through.
Council needs to be informed on that because if my concern is that they will. It'll just be level, like cut off at the 3 feet, even though there'll be something lower. I'm sure it's go below 3 feet and then, gonna put sod and.
Yeah, if there's going to be a change order required, certainly that would be something that the council would need to approve. So if we get to that point and the pillars do go much further than 3 feet, that'll be a discussion that I'll have with the mayor and we'll decide.
Does the rest of the council feel that way? I feel like I'm the only one speaking up here. I mean, I think
Well, what's the, I'm curious what the actual concern that you have about it.
my concern is that if the pillars go below 3 feet, which I'm sure they must. And all we do is cut them off at 3 feet and then we put dirt and whatever, then we're leaving things behind. And if the plan is we want this to be an enticing piece of property for future development, but we've left these steel and concrete barriers still buried in the ground, I think it's poor business. And I think the council and public should be informed and then a decision about how to move forward should be presented to council. And if by vote, council says, yeah, level it off and we're just gonna cover it up there, okay. But I don't think it should be a foregone conclusion. I'm very concerned about the future of that.
We don't want somebody coming back and saying, well, we respond to this and.
Well, I will say-
I think we thought, I understand where you're coming from. If it is an opportunity to develop that property in the future, I think I would caution the body to, I think I would caution the body to maybe not assume that the property is going to be sold to some developer who's then going to start digging around and find big concrete pillars in the ground. As per the demolition contractor, that has been defined as an acceptable point of demolition to be able to build 3 feet of soil with seed and return the property to green space. If council wants to spend more money on taking concrete out of the ground.
That was my question was,
Yeah.
did we, in the contract, did we say, okay, we're only gonna go this far, we're not gonna go any
It's
farther?
explicitly stated that the contractor is responsible for excavating 36 inches below
So
grade.
if it's 48, then we're fine.
That would be an additional cost. Now, I will say as a matter of standard practice, the 2 major demolitions that the city has conducted over the past 5 years. Those being Glen Falls National Bank Building on Market Street and the old MLB site on Green Street. When those buildings were demolished, the foundations were removed, I think, only to a depth of 24 inches. But because of the unknown factor out of the crate with the original plan, we felt 36 was a safer number to put in the bid spec. So,
So historically council's past demolition is just down at 24 inches below.
I believe it was 24 on that too, yes.
Yeah, we're gonna put a parking lot there, so.
Right,
it wouldn't matter.
this is a state park and I don't want
Yeah, so you need the extra.
that to be overlooked.
Any other new business?
Yeah,
Yes.
I just have, this will be the time to ask questions regarding the beach maps, correct? Since that's here.
I mean, you can ask them,
Okay.
yeah.
I just have two questions, okay, for two different scenarios, okay, say somebody has a car that is not registered in the city of Plattsburgh, but they reside in the city of Plattsburgh, they get their bills in the city of Plattsburgh, just their car is registered in Beacon Town.
Mhm.
Are they still eligible for this?
Give me the scenario one more time.
They reside in the city of Plattsburgh,
Mhm.
they get their utilities, bills and everything, city of Plattsburgh.
Yeah,
But their cars is registered up in Beekman Town because that's where they.
yeah, in that case, I would say to grant the resident a pass. There have been a number of situations in the past.
Yeah. Because I know on your license, it's illegal to have a different address.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But when we set the rules for beach pass eligibility, we tried to make them broad, but we knew that they weren't going to cover every situation like the one you're describing. So when those situations arrive, I'd ask my staff to come to me with details, and I'll give them a yes or a no. I don't think I've given a no at all this year.
And the other situation would be if they have a car registered in the city of Plattsburgh, but they do not have their name on any of the bills for the residence they live at. So,
Again, without knowing the full details, I would err on the side of generosity and say that.
all
Yeah,
right.
if there's a question, just have them call Matt, to be honest.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
pretty flexible.
Yeah.
Well, one question was given to me by a former mayor, so I had to find out an answer.
Which former mayor?
Motion to adjourn. Counselor Goss, Counselor, all in favor? We're adjourned. Thanks, folks.